around the nation. TYT Nation, Jeff Waldorf here with you. Welcome to the show. It's Thursday. We got a great show for you guys today. It's good to be back. You can say I was out yesterday. Had some doctor appointment, but I'm back. And I'm in pretty decent health, so that's good. All right. So good to be back, like I said before. And already, hello. How is everybody today? By popular demand,
Mike Pounds.
Here we go. All right, got a great show for you guys today. Like I said, we're gonna have some fun. We have, of course, some stories that I missed from yesterday, including Republicans bum rushing a secure room to disrupt impeachment inquiries. Fun. Then we have the response from a Fox News host who's calling BS on the reason that these Republicans are trying to get into that room. I'll explain that. Then we'll switch gears. We'll talk a little bit about Syria, the Kurds, and a GOP politician who accidentally told the truth. Disastrous. Then we're going to talk as well about recent article in CNBC, which has a lot of millennials pretty angry, and I can see why. I'll explain. And then a Republican actually has a more progressive position on student loan debt than one of the leading candidates in the 2020 primary. Yeah, I'm not kidding. I'm going to talk about this Republican, right? And actually give him credit for what he's doing. Weird. Okay, anyway. So it's going to be an interesting show for reasons that you can obviously see. So stick around for the next hour. Please like and share the stream as well. Very helpful that you do so. Also consider supporting us through our patreon.com/TYTNation. It's our Patreon page, as well as channel memberships. So I will give a shout out to, of course, channel members and patrons later in the show. Also, consider submitting Q bounties. That's qbounty.com in order to ask a question, and I'll answer it. I still have to get to some of the questions that were answered previously, and all in due time. I will definitely get to those. But if you want to send in yours, you can do that as well. Also, interesting news. There is a Bernie Sanders rally in Detroit that I believe I will be at this Sunday. Very important rally. Where it is expected that Rashida Tlaib, another member of the squad, will make her endorsement of Bernie Sanders official. So that should be fun. I will be there, hopefully, to film it. And so, if you see me, go ahead and say hello. All right, guys. Before we get into into the actual story, so we do have an announcement, a little bit of breaking news. So let me go here. And
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Down goes Tim Ryan. Now, most of you, I think, are like, who? Exactly. No, Tim Ryan was running for the Democratic nomination. He was one of the people that was pretty much indistinguishable from every, I guess, middle-aged white person that they had on the stage, that they had in this primary. But he's congressman from Ohio, and he put his campaign on hold he's a congressman from Ohio, like I said, put his campaign on hold because, well, there was a devastating mass shooting. And so he put his campaign on hold and had no reason to start it back up. So he is now officially out of the race. So great. Wonderful. Not really a whole lot of big news on that one, but we have another Democrat that has dropped out, which only makes the field about 19,000. So great. Then Interesting enough, also, is that we now have 9 people that have qualified for the debate. The newest one, of course, Amy Klobuchar, who has an astounding poll total of 3%. Yeah. Okay. 3% is apparently your cutoff there for the debate. That's going to, again, the November debate, there's already going to be too many people there. Again, 9 people have already qualified. No. These debates are ridiculous. Because, again, you don't have a whole lot of time to actually talk about policy or to really make a contrast. So at this point, again, 9 people, you're going to have a crowded stage that nobody's really going to be able to talk very much. And so, no, it's disastrous. The field really needs to um, be winnowed down even further. And I think maybe the cutoff should be 6%. And if that's the case, then there's going to be like 3, maybe 4 people on the stage. And so that's kind of the whole point. But okay. Anyway, let's get into the stories, huh? Let's have some fun with Republicans. Okay. It appears the desperation is real. On Wednesday, a contingent of House Republicans stormed a secure room in the Capitol basement on Wednesday, disrupting a deposition and violating House rules by bringing phones and other electronic equipment into a secure area. So now, why would they do that? Well, it's a way to defend Donald Trump. So now, this was led by Representative Matt Gaetz. And there was about 30 lawmakers, maybe 47, that ended up being in the Intelligence Committee's secure area. Again, this is the House Intelligence Committee where they were basically conducting interviews and into, of course, Donald Trump's dealings with Ukraine. And basically talking about the impeachment inquiry into President Trump trying to pressure the Ukrainian leader, Volodymyr Zelensky, into digging up dirt against his political opponents, which is obviously wrong. So now these Republicans who are not members of the committee, and there are Republican members of the committee, by the way, again, they brought phones and other electronics into the Sensitive Compartmented Information Facility, or the SCIF. All right. So this happened just about the time as the Intelligence Committee was set to interview Laura Cooper. Now, Laura Cooper is a Pentagon employee who oversaw Ukrainian issues, so apparently they wanted to talk to her. Cooper was in the room when Republicans decided to barge to the door, and so the committee staff had to move her to another area. The whole thing got shut down, and the whole thing was essentially delayed for the whole entire day. Wonderful. Okay, so now obviously this is something that you're not supposed to be able to do, might even be a crime. So now why did they do that? Oh, as I mentioned, defend Donald Trump, but how specifically? Well, the Republicans are now claiming that these meetings are too secret, not enough transparency. And so it's saying that, or they're saying that it's basically the entire thing has been really, really unfair to Donald Trump. But here's the problem, right? Who knows if any of the deposition would actually get back or to Donald Trump if you allow other people who are not part of the committee to go and sit in on the committee or to make it public. Again, you don't want any potential actors knowing or involving the questions or knowing the questions or to be able to come up with a coordinated defense. And so that's a problem, right? And at the moment, right now, they can and should conduct private meetings, and when the time is right, they will make the testimony public. And so, and that's the issue, right? Republicans at this point, led by Matt Gaetz and, of course, Donald Trump, want to know ahead of time what's going on. They don't have a right to know. So, again, why storm the room? Well, again, it shows it is something that Donald Trump wanted to happen. And it basically, for these lawmakers, shows their loyalty to Donald Trump, which of course he values over basically everything else. And so why do I say it's a stunt? Because we've learned that Republicans who storm a room they already had legitimate access to the depositions. So it's just a show. And of course it worked. White House Press Secretary Stephanie Grisham said that President Trump was very happy with House Republicans. She said, quote, he was very supportive of it, as he should be. Yeah, of course. So now the reason, again, Donald Trump and Republicans are so worried about this, because on Tuesday, there's a lot of damning testimony from Ambassador William Taylor. So remember, Taylor testified that Trump did try to solicit a quid pro quo from Volodymyr Zelensky. Taylor documented that a White House meeting between Zelensky and Trump was connected to Zelensky opening an investigation into Burisma, that's the Ukrainian energy company, where Hunter Biden was paid $50,000 a month to sit on the board of. Now, look, we all know the reason that he was paid $50,000 a month. It's institutional corruption. Of course it is. Now, is it illegal corruption? Unfortunately not. And so their efforts to dig up, any sort of criminal wrongdoing on the part of Joe Biden is unfounded. Even if there, like I said, there is a problem with the institutional corruption, the fact that he was put on this board and paid large sums of money because he was a Biden, that is in itself problematic as well. And so, look, I would love to tighten some rules on that and to prevent that kind of situation from happening again. Because, again, that is a conflict of interest. Nonetheless, right, basically pressuring and using foreign military aid to pressure a foreign leader into opening an investigation that is a political investigation that will help your political reelection chances, that is also wrong. And of course, so is quid pro quo, right? So now, here's the thing. The texts that were released, and they were released by Kurt Volker, by the way. And this was between Gordon Sondland, Kurt Volker, and William Taylor. Taylor, in those conversations, had said, quote, as I said on the phone, I think it's crazy to withhold security assistance for help with the political campaign. To which Sondland had replied about 5 hours later, using a Trump talking point. No, I didn't say quid pro quo. Please call me and let's get off text. Now, that talking point was, of course, directed by the White House after consultation. Now, during his testimony, Taylor had also said, quote, in fact, Ambassador Sondland said everything was dependent on such an announcement, including security assistance. And he added that Trump wanted Zelensky in a public box by making a statement about ordering the investigation. So that is devastating to a president that says no quid pro quo. In fact, their argument has been completely and utterly shattered by this. And besides, you don't need quid pro quo to even impeach. And so, look, the fact is that the president used his office to pressure a foreign country into digging up dirt on his political opponent. That is simply wrong on its own. Now, you add in quid pro quo and add in abusing the office of the president, and you are left with one conclusion. You have to impeach him. It's as simple as that. And these Republicans, they know this. Matt Gaetz, Steve Scalise, and all the other pro-Trump defenders, they know this, but they want to distract you. They want to say, oh, it's such an unfair process. When we know, of course, the Republicans would not be at all transparent if the situation were reversed. In fact, it's just another play. It's another act to defend a sitting president who just happens to be a criminal. All right. So let's get into the legal justification of this. All right.
As frustrating as it may be to have these hearings going on behind closed doors, the hearings over which Congressman Schiff is presiding, they are consistent with the rule.
That was Judge Andrew Napolitano basically hitting back against Republican complaints that the impeachment inquiries are so unfair. because they've been held in secret. So now on Wednesday, a group of Republicans charged into the SCIF, or Sensitive Compartmented Information Facility, in order to stage a defense of Donald Trump. So they complained about the hearings. Oh, they're too secret. They're too unfair to the president. And so you need to come out with it. It needs to be public, and it needs to be public right now. But that's not how things are done. Now, interestingly enough, them barging into that was something that Trump greatly approved of, and also, as we've learned, he had helped organize beforehand. So now the Republicans, they busted in the room. They had their electronic devices, cell phones, which you're not supposed to have, maybe to take video, and of course, they allowed Democrats to let them sit in. But there's a good majority of Republicans that were already cleared to access the depositions and even be in there. But one of them, Matt Gaetz, was not allowed to be in there. So now, by the way, here's the thing. So now they're talking about the secrecy rules that Democrats operate under, right? And they're complaining about it. How dare you? You're hiding it from the American people. Why would you just make up these arbitrary, ridiculous rules in order to keep Republicans out? So unfair. Well, the irony is that these rules were actually passed into existence by Republicans. Oops. So now, make no mistake here, Napolitano is deeply conservative, right? But he also takes time to not only understand the law, but also to read the law. Take a look.
So let me tell you what I did for you, Kilmeade. I read the House rules.
Okay.
And as frustrating as it may be to have these hearings going on behind closed doors, the hearings over which Congressman Schiff is presiding, they are consistent with the rules.
They can make any rules they want.
Well, they can't change the rules. They follow the rules. And when were the rules written? Last, in January of 2015. And who signed them? John Boehner. And who enacted them? A Republican majority. So
what do the rules say?
The rules say that this level of inquiry, this initial level of inquiry, can be done in secret. I want to watch it. I am dying to see if John Ratcliffe's cross-examination of Ambassador Taylor was as aggressive and successful as Republicans claim it is. John Ratcliffe is a former serious trial lawyer who knows how to cross-examine. We didn't get to see.
All right, so first of all, I love it. You can just make up any rules that you want. No, you can't make up those rules. Those rules, you have to follow the rules. As simple as that, right? And what the Democrats are doing are simply following the rules. But it's not. But it happens to be Matt Gaetz and these Republicans, these pro-Trump Republicans, that are not following the rules and then complaining about rules that they themselves had already passed. And so, I mean, this is both ironic and hilarious. So now, part of the video that I don't have is Ainsley Earhart, right? Now, she said this. This is after Napolitano had said that these are not the impeachment hearings. And that's very important. This is the impeachment inquiry. It's where they get, where they basically interview people and decide whether or not they're going to actually introduce formal articles of impeachment, which would lead to public impeachment hearings. Okay? So now, Napolitano said the impeachment hearings have to be held in public by the House Judiciary Committee. This is the initial interview of witnesses to see what they have to say. Now, Ainsley Earhart said this, quote, and they will continue to go on and on until they find something on the president. Now, Napolitano replied to that by saying this, quote, that's what police and prosecutors do. Oh. Now, he continued by saying they come to a conclusion that the person is probably guilty, and then they look for evidence to support or negate that. That's what Congressman Schiff is doing, and he's following the rules, as frustrating as those rules are. That is absolutely true. But I love the attempted spin by Ainsley. Well, wow. I mean, they're just going to keep looking for something until they find it. Yeah, that's kind of what they do. I mean, that's their job when they're actually trying to do oversight of the president. And it's also something that Republicans had done during the Clinton investigations, and during Benghazi, Fast and Furious. I mean, all the different supposed Obama scandals that happened during the last administration. They did all that under these rules. And of course, now, the bigger irony here is that, again, they created these rules likely as a way to do investigations about Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama during the last administration. This is stacked with irony, man. So much. It's like an onion. You peel one layer off, you get another. Except at this point, it's kind of a rotten onion. But it's wonderful how there's at least one person on Fox News who, look, again, we don't agree on policy, but this person actually takes the time to read and know the law. Which is probably why he's not going to last at Fox News much longer, is he? Who knows? All right. All right, let's go to the next story. All right. Now, Senator John Cornyn accidentally admitted something when he talked about the Kurds and Syria. So now he supports Donald Trump's position of withdrawing American troops from northern Syria. So I've got some nuance to talk about when it comes to that position. But look, generally, I'm in favor of withdrawing troops from the Middle East. But there's some issues with withdrawing from this particular area at this particular time. So now, let me get to Cornyn's remarks on this. He was talking to reporters on Wednesday, and he said this, quote, "If Turkey was planning on coming into northern Syria and trying to ethnically cleanse the Kurds, and U.S. troops are caught in the middle, I'm not completely convinced that it was a bad idea to get them out of harm's way." Okay, so, I mean, no, hey, man, look, if Turkey wants to do ethnic cleansing, I mean, who are we to stand in the way, right? We just got to get our guys out of the way. They've got oil fields to protect. Really? Really? Look, here's the thing. This is a complicated situation. Every time I talk about it, there is a lot of complication. There's a lot of nuance on either side. For one, Turkey is our ally in NATO. I don't want to make an enemy of the Turkish people or an enemy of the country. And so, and of course, further distance them from NATO and possibly have more of an alliance with the Russians. So that's not good, right? So we don't want to get into conflict with them. But at the same time, we also made a lot of promises to the Kurdish people, and they're facing a literal ethnic cleansing. In fact, that's exactly what they were doing. They were going in to cleanse the area of the Kurds. That's exactly what's going on. But here's John Cornyn saying, oh, I mean, they're going to do ethnic cleansing. Might as well get the hell out of here. Well, the whole point, the whole thing, the whole reason that the Turks were not doing ethnic cleansing is because of our presence there, because they didn't want us in the crossfire. Now that we left, thanks to Trump's decision where he didn't consult our allies in the area, or basically anyone in Congress, we get out of there and we basically open the door for this ethnic cleansing. Not good, right? But so now, the good thing, there is one good thing. We have a ceasefire. But not before thousands of Kurds were slaughtered by the Turks. In fact, 11,000 of them, no, I'm sorry. It was thousands of them that were killed. But while we were working together in that area to combat ISIS, 11,000 Kurds were killed. In fact, they took point. We basically gave them logistical support, and they had done the heavy fighting against ISIS. Okay. And then we basically abandoned them. And that's it. But, the one thing that we didn't abandon in that area? The oil fields. We secured the oil field. Trump himself came out and said, we secured the oil. That's what this has always been about, by the way. They never cared about the Kurds. Republicans didn't. Uh, Again, Cornyn admitted that, hey, man, look, they're getting ethnically cleansed. We would just like to get out of there. That's it. Nobody else, um, by the way, right? Nothing else really matters to these Republicans. So now there's a ceasefire at least, and that's a good thing. I mean, again, this is a horrible situation, but at least there's a ceasefire. Now Trump is basically taking credit for it because, of course, he is, right? He said this, quote, "We have done them a great service, and we've done a great job for all of them," Trump said of Turkey, Syria, and the Kurds. Quote, "And now we're getting out. Let someone else fight over this long, blood-stained sand." Again, this is what he thinks it's about. They're just fighting over sand. No, they're not fighting over sand. In fact, look, the northern area of Syria is basically, it's the only area in Syria that actually has the oil, right? And so, yeah, there's a reason why people fight over that. But it's actually Syrian oil. And so that's important, right? And here's the thing about we're getting out. We're not actually getting out. Those troops aren't coming back home. They're not going back to Oklahoma or Idaho or Ohio. No, no, no. They're being shifted around. Some are going to Iraq. Others are going to southern and central Syria. They're just leaving the north part. And not only that, but Donald Trump has also sent additional troops to Saudi Arabia. So, are we getting out? No, absolutely not. No, our troops are being shuffled around. Okay. So then, again, Trump did nothing, claimed credit for it, and has admitted the real reason that we've always been there, which goes along with what Cornyn had said. We were not there to protect the Kurds, but protect the oil so that multinational corporations can continue to profit off what is, like I said before, Syrian oil. So now, finally, when he was asked about this, right, Cornyn had a little bit of a walk back. I think he realized that what he said was disastrous. He told HuffPost, quote, "I wasn't very clear. If the U.S. isn't committed to staying in Syria, getting our troops out of harm's way, where they might be injured or killed during the inevitable conflict between the Turks and the Kurds, was something I was concerned about." Well, but here's the thing. We are still committed there. And by the way, our troops being in the middle is what prevented this from happening in the first place, or prevented from this from happening before, right? Since we left, we basically gave them a green light to go and do whatever they want, the Turks. And so that had a problem with, like I said, ISIS fighters, jails no longer being protected, and things like that. Thousands of them had escaped, going to Europe or going back to fight, ironically, U.S. forces in other places. Because look, you can't protect prisons, you can't protect prisoners, which, by the way, Trump expected them to continue doing that while getting slaughtered by the Turks, and then expected the Turks to take over. That was not part of the deal. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And so the whole thing was an absolute disaster. Like I said, there is ethnic cleansing going on, and our politicians just kind of shrug. They don't care because they only cared about one thing, and that's oil. Okay. I think I'm pretty clear about that. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a break, read some super chats, read some comments, and thank members, of course, channel members, as well as patrons. We're going to do that after the break. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already, and we will come back and do some non-Trump stories, including a Republican that is more progressive on student loan debt than a progressive candidate. I can't wait to give you that story. All right. So we'll do that. We'll be right back. Run the Nation. Welcome back to the show. Run the Nation right here, TWT Nation. Jeff Walder here with you. Okay, I've got some super chats I want to read. First, Jedi Protector says, here's to you. Hope we can do the show every weekday. Keep fighting the good fight. Yeah, yesterday I had a doctor's appointment, so that's why I wasn't here. But yeah, hey, that's the plan. And contributions like yours help to keep that working. So thank you so much. Okay, David Richardson says, is it wrong that I want to see these Republicans, starting with Gates, get tased for what they did? You know what? Probably not go in that direction, but maybe arrested by the Sergeant at Arms, possibly. I'd be much more happy with that. So, then I got some member comments here before I actually, you know what? No, we'll do the member comments first, and then I'll give a shout out to the members. First, Jeanette Villalona says the Kurds are people too. Yeah, people tend to forget that. Zach Sherman, another member, says I think most of the troops are mad that they aren't protecting the Kurds. I've actually seen quite a bit of that. A lot of people in the military, and this might actually cost Donald Trump some of the military guys' votes. Again, they're very solidly conservative, but there are some that are really, really angry about that decision. And the decision, of course, to mainly protect the oil fields. And then Peter S. says, if I tried what Gates did, I would be in jail with some serious bruises. Well, that makes all of us, basically. Anyone who isn't a Republican politician, can apparently get away with doing whatever they want. I mean, I don't see Nancy Pelosi stepping in to do anything about it. So who knows, right? You can basically, if you're wealthy and powerful, you can do almost anything. Which is kind of a sad commentary on our country. So, another super chat here from Vincent Vandal. Says, Republicans, how dare Democrats keep us out? Analyst, it's the rules. Republicans, how dare Democrats make horrible rules? Republicans made them. And he continues by saying, Republicans, fake news. Nice. Very nice. Okay. Anyway. So, members. So first we'll go to patrons, right? Patreon.com/TYTNation. I give a shout out to Jeanette Villalona, Jeffrey Edmonds, and Jeremiah Hedberg. So thank you, patreon.com/TYTNation. That's you can sign up to support the channel. Other than, of course, your super chats, and there's also YouTube memberships. I want to give a shout out to Old Major, Adrian Benningfield, Tom Pashkoff, and Pascal Fife. So thank you to all those members who help make this show possible. Okay. So now let's go to Angry Millennials. Because you know what? I'm a millennial, and I'm also kind of angry. So, whoops. All right. Recently, CNBC tweeted out an article that got some people rather fired up. So now this article was titled, 1 in 6 millennials have about $100,000 saved. Here's how much you should have. So now generally this would be a non-confrontational article, right? Oh, we're getting financial planning advice, right? But it happened to hit a nerve with some people, myself included, who has nowhere near $100,000 saved. Now, in their story, they reference a survey from Bank of America. Now, Bank of America, that survey claims that 16% of millennials, or people between the ages of 23 and 37, have $100,000 or more in savings. Well, you know what? That's wonderful. Great. Good job. No, I'm actually really serious, right? In this economic climate, it is actually tough to save a lot of money, especially that amount of money. So I'm actually not going to hate on the people who did a good job, right? If you literally went and saved that money and you forego, avocado toast and lattes and whatever else, and you saved all this money or basically forego essentially living whatever, like, because For me, the only way that I could see that happening if somebody just subsists on ramen and living at their parents, eating ramen, drinking water for 20 years, and not doing anything but saving money and working, well, then you can get to a lot of money, right? So for anyone who had to go through something like that or whatever, well, man, you got more fortitude than I am, or than I have, and good job, right? Nice work. Maybe now you can actually enjoy some of that money, right? But seriously though, that's not my issue. Is I'm actually being able to save money. My issue is when people use the success of those people, right, who were either incredibly lucky or incredibly frugal, ended up getting good jobs, et cetera, as a cudgel to beat down everyone else and minimize the institutional disadvantages that plague a majority of our generation. So now, remember, most of us, we are supposed to, according to the article, we're supposed to, by the age 30, right, have the equivalent of our annual salary saved. So for me, I'm supposed to have $36,000 saved at this point, right? So, okay, I ain't got near that. You know what I have? Over $100,000 in debt. That's what I have, personally. So, look, that's the problem, right? This is what most millennials are carrying. And look, the student loan debt, for example, is especially large, right? So, for me, like, I pay off my student loans every month, and that balance never seems to go down. Never. And it's because, of course, you have incredibly high interest rates and loans that are designed to never be fully paid off or to take a very, very, very long time to pay off, right? And that's unfortunately what a lot of millennials are facing. Makes it really, really difficult to save when you're carrying 30, 40,000, maybe even up to $100,000 or more in student loan debt. So that's what we have. That's what's happening, right? That's what we have to face. And then you add into that, of course, stagnant wages, prevalence of low-paying service jobs in lieu of, high-paying union jobs. Growing up, getting jobs in the middle of the Great Recession. So we were basically set behind most people. All those things have led to millennials facing unique problems that no other generation has had to face. Which is why we're kind of pissed when we're berated for not having, in my case, thousands of dollars in savings. Okay? And now, and again, I wish I had that much savings, but I guess apparently I'm not all that responsible. Now, Twitter, of course, social media, a lot of people shared their anger at this article, and I want to read some of those. Matt Bronger says, I'm sorry, maybe I'm old and out of touch, but there's no way this is true. Did they only ask the kids on Modern Family? Well, again, 1 in 6. Not very much. DJ Kirkland says, oops. David Mack had said, wait, like in Sims money? Because we can get that much in fake money, not actual real money. More. Jana Shortall says, who, where? I want names because I know none of these people. Look, and most of us don't know any of these people. That's because there's so few of us that actually aren't carrying around a giant load of student loan debt. And again, for those of you who managed to go through school without racking up tons of student loan debt, well, that's wonderful for you. But let's not use your story to bludgeon everyone else. Now, Daniel Ahmad says, they mean to write 1 in 6 millennials have $100,000 in debt? No, that would be the 5 out of 6. Carrie Steele says 5 in 6 millennials have $10 left after every paycheck. Ian Miles Chong says the other 5 owe colleges $100,000. So now, one important caveat, right? So now, and that would kind of explain maybe where some of this 1 in 6 comes from. You remember, there's millennials that are starting to push 40. Again, I'm 36 years old, so I'm fairly close to the age range, to the edge of being a millennial. Um, a lot of us are near 40. So having a significant amount of savings isn't all that entirely impossible, although it's very, very difficult. And so there are people here, there are millennials in this age range who have become doctors and lawyers and stockbrokers and etc. And so they maybe have made a lot of money and were able to pay back their student loans and managed to get out of debt. No, that's wonderful, right? No, but there's also, for every doctor and lawyer, there's also millennial heirs, people who grew up with their parents that are incredibly wealthy. And so they ended up not having to take out student loans, not having to take out any debt because they have a whole lot of money. And so there's that fact as well. And I'm pretty sure those two groups, I think, make up the majority of this 1 in 6 or the 16% that end up not actually having any debt. Most of us who, don't have that advantage in life, didn't grow up with that advantage, well, a lot of us are stuck with a lot of debt and no savings. So that anger, justified. Again, I've called us a lost generation before due to the cards that we've been dealt with. Now, look, we deal with it the best we can, which is why, of course, there's an article coming out every week that millennials have killed napkins and Applebee's and diamonds and whatever else, right? No, it's just us responding to the situation that we have been handed and responding to the best we can, trying to conserve our money as best we can and do whatever we can to try to just make it. And so that's something that all these articles tend to gloss over. And it's more of one of those things like, oh, you think you guys got it tough? 1 in 6 millennials have over $100,000. Well, what are you guys doing? What are you guys doing? Well, again, it ignores the circumstances of individuals and basically tries to use that, the people who are successful, and again, no problem with their success, but using that success to try to keep down others and to really draw attention away from the failures of the system. Because again, when you have most millennials, a large majority of a generation that is mired deeply in debt, mostly, again, like I said, student loan debt, and not getting ahead, not buying cars, not buying houses, not having families, well, then that's a gigantic problem and one that needs to be addressed. So the majority, like I said, it is nice to know that some people have made it, but I got to tell you, the majority has not been as lucky. Okay. I got one more story for you guys. Now, there is a Trump official who has resigned his position and has now endorsed eliminating a lot of the country's outstanding student loan debt. So now, again, this is a Trump official who worked under Betsy DeVos in the education department. So now, this is according to an article in the Wall Street Journal. A. Wayne Johnson, that's the man's name. A. Wayne Johnson was appointed in 2017 by Education Secretary Betsy DeVos. So now he was appointed to run as the chief operating officer of the Office of Federal Student Aid. So look, they essentially oversee the student aid program. Now, after 7 months, he moved into a different role as chief strategy and transformation officer. So now the whole point is he would be leading a revamp of how the agency deals with borrowers and the companies that service their debt. So that would be Sallie Mae, Navient, and all those different companies that go and basically take your money every month and barely reduce your balance. So now in this new role, Johnson noticed something that progressives have been saying about student loans, about how high interest rates and the fact that there's so many people that are defaulting from their loans and are unable to pay it, as well as the amount, $1.6 trillion. Johnson said, after looking at the numbers, that repayment trends suggest that much of the student debt will likely never be repaid. And right now, of course, the government, the federal government, happens to be the biggest lender of student loans and happens to make the most money off collecting student loans. So that's a bit of a problem for us and also a bit of a problem for Johnson. Warren has also said the same thing. The federal government should not be profiting off putting people in a lifetime of debt for education. And I happen to agree with that, as does Mr. Johnson. So now let me give you a quote from him talking about the problem. He said, quote, "We run through the process of putting this debt burden on somebody, but it rides on their credit files. It rides on their back for decades." Adding that his solution would be to cancel a large majority of that debt, or about $930 billion worth. So now remember, we have $1.6 trillion worth of student loan debt. So he doesn't propose getting rid of all of it, but at least the vast majority of it. Senator Johnson said he arrived at this position to cancel student debt after he joined the administration and had a firsthand look at some of the problems, including the high level of defaults and the difficulties of administering a program to erase loans for public sector workers. I'm sure also, and maybe not, but I'm thinking possibly the Betsy DeVos trying to push back against any efforts to discharge or forgive any sort of loans for public sector workers. In fact, she hates that idea. She thinks, no, you take the loan out, you pay it, and that's it. It doesn't matter what it does. I have 10 yachts. Okay, all right, well, I disagree. So now, one more quote here from Johnson. He said of student loans, quote, "The time has come for us to end and stop the insanity." Now, his call sounds a lot like the plan put forward by Elizabeth Warren. So again, Elizabeth Warren's plan is to erase student loan debt up to $50,000 for every person. For every family. Now, that's nearly 37 million borrowers would have their entire student loan balances canceled under the plan. That's his plan, right? So here's the shocking thing, right? So now, Johnson describes himself as a, quote, moderate Republican. This is a moderate Republican saying, you know what? We should cancel $50,000 of student loan debt for every American. Every American that has it. That's more progressive than canceling it per family. Wow. So now, to be fair, there is some additional context here. Johnson is also running for a Senate seat. So let's be clear about that. But it's a long shot bid. But here's the thing. He looked at the numbers and he said, look, there's no way we can do this. They can't pay this back. It's an albatross across their necks. What's the point? What's the point of just having this debt that never, ever goes away? Well, I guess the whole point is apparently to have people continue to pay the federal government and the student loan debt servicers in perpetuity for the rest of their lives. Now, I guess that makes sense for a conservative to say, wait, I don't want somebody to have to sit there and pay the government and have the government in the process of, loaning out, student loans, right? And I've heard that argument from conservatives, libertarians, and it carries a certain amount of sense, right? And the problem is I've always pushed against that because how do you fund schooling, right, in the first place, if the federal government doesn't have any role? And so that's a little bit of a problem, but the whole student loan system itself is absolutely disastrous and has led to disastrous results, as we can see. So now, again, he says this. He's a moderate Republican, but he's for canceling up to $50,000 worth of student loan debt. So now you look at this and you see a couple of things. For one, this plan, again, aligns a lot with what some progressives have been calling for. So you might see, possibly, if he ends up winning, a little bit of bipartisan support. But it also says that Warren's plan is not aggressive enough. And let me give you the details into that, right? So now Johnson, back to his plan, he advocates for a tax credit as well as of up to $50,000 for people who have already repaid their student loans. So he does something that none of the other plans really address. What have you done? Like, what if you've already paid it, right? What are we going to do for those people? And this is, of course, to say, hey, look, man, you already paid your bill. You were diligent. You paid your student loan. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you a $50,000 credit. Well, that's huge. Again, like, I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, tax rates, whatever. No, this is a tax credit, $50,000. You would not, the average American family wouldn't have to pay taxes under this for years. Now, that could cause some other problems, right? But at this point, that's kind of a win for these families, right? Not bad. So now, how does he pay for this, though? Mr. Johnson suggested paying for the plan with a 1% tax on corporate earnings. This is a Republican who just quit serving in the Trump administration. And he's saying we should tax corporations and we should forgive student loan debt up to a certain amount. What is going on here? Now, not only does Mr. Johnson's plan sound very similar to Warren's, but it's actually a little bit more progressive. Again, Warren's plan calls for forgiving up to $50,000 in student debt for families, right? And scaling back benefits for those earning above $100,000. Johnson has no income cap and, again, would forgive $50,000 of student loan debt for every individual. Wow. Again, ironically, more progressive than Warren, but not as progressive as Sanders. Again, Bernie Sanders says student loan debt, get rid of it. All of it. $1.6 trillion gone. Now, where there is a difference, of course, is Elizabeth Warren. First, Bernie Sanders says, let's just go and make school tuition free, 100%. Now, you also have Warren saying essentially the same thing, right? And where they differ is on their student loan forgiveness plans. Now, here's where his Republicanism comes into play. Mr. Johnson, he would actually give everyone a $50,000 voucher to cover 4 years of tuition at college or graduate school. Not as good, right? Definitely not as progressive. But again, he explains that this is the best, more conservative plan, right? That's consistent with his values, giving people whatever choice and opportunity. And I think, of course, making sure that college is funded first by the government so that they can have leverage when it comes to prices. Okay, that's, I think, the better way to go. But look, at least there's a plan. And again, it's a conservative plan, which isn't that bad. Again, that tells me that Elizabeth Warren needs to be far more aggressive if she actually wants to claim the mantle of being a progressive. As far as Bernie Sanders, of course, the most progressive in the race and someone whose plan I 100% support. So now the overall point here is here you have a Trump official, a Republican, looking at the numbers and seeing that student loans are a huge problem and actually coming up with a plan, a good plan, to actually deal with it. Because right now, student loan debt hurts the economy, prevents people from buying homes, starting families, participating in the overall economy. It is an albatross across their necks, and it's an unsustainable one. And whatever plan I think eliminates or drastically reduces that burden is one that at least needs to be looked at and enacted. Because this is a problem that needs to be solved, and needs to be solved now. All right. Fascinating. All right. That's all I got for you guys. Thank you. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Appreciate you watching. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button, like I said. Or consider becoming a channel member or patron. Patreon.com/TYTNation. All right, guys. Thank you. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you guys later.
Please clap.
Mike Pounds,